Cool. We are live. Um, I hope we get more out of it than we did last time. Actually, we didn't do too bad, but the battery ended up taking a dump, even though it was plugged into the wall. Cheap phone. New digs. It's way too be outside, so. But I'm gonna warn you, fine viewers, right now. There are two dogs in this house that if somebody even so much as farts across the street, will start barking. And I have one that won't shut up. So, just warning you now. It's about 7:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Devin. I'm the owner and creator of Pounding Rocks Truck Shop, where basically I just tinker around with Nissan pickup trucks and Pathfinders, whatever happens to fall into my lap. So I got started with the Nissan trucks many years ago. My first truck was a 1981 Datsun 720. I bought that in 1996. And from there I had an 84 720 dually, and I've had multiple hard bodies and 3 WD-21 Pathfinders at this point. And all of them were in dire need of work, and some of them didn't make it, and some of them are still in my possession as forever projects. So I got 2 minutes here before 8. I'll let some more people get in the room, and then I sat down and I put pen and paper together here to try and make a list of things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and there really isn't much. So I'm going to kind of just open the floor up and take some questions here in a minute, and then I'll do what I can to answer them. Behind me I have my Nissan Technical Library, going back to 1974. So if you guys stump me, I may just have to turn around and grab a book and flip through it and everything. And I do have right here a very well used 1990 truck and Pathfinder service manual, so I can try and find the information quickly if it's something that is highly technical. I'll let the questions dictate where I turn. So yes, the last video did okay. It's at about 120 views, no thumbs down, which is good. About 10% thumbs up. So I felt that was good enough that I could do another one. And I had some people asking me a lot of good questions, and I was kind of all over the place as it was my first video, so I wasn't really sure what to address first. But I think that now I've got a little bit of experience in it, I'm going to try and do it a little bit more in an organized fashion. So I guess it is 7:59. I'll get the ball rolling. Let's start with a little technical here. A couple things that I did write down on my list. As I said, I drew a blank on the list because it's so open-ended. There's so much to talk about that, making a list for myself is kind of like just so many elements in my mind. I'm like, where do I want to go? But here's one that I see on various websites and on Facebook pages quite often, and it gets answered a lot, but I guess I'll answer it here in my own words. Is the brake lights on these trucks will every once in a while stay lit, whether you got the headlights on or off, whether you're inside the truck or outside the truck. Some of you probably already know this, but what's happened is that there's a little plastic plug that is attached to the brake pedal, and why they didn't make this out of metal or just form it into the actual brake pedal arm itself is beyond me, but I guess it was cheaper to just put plastic in there. well, the plastic becomes brittle after a while, and what happens is that it just crumbles and it pops out, and then there's a big hole where the plug used to be, and the brake pedal switch that plug is supposed to press is no longer in place to press the switch, so the switch just stays open the whole time, and voila, your brake lights stay on. So there's people out there, Nissan still offers it because the D21 is not unique to this idea. And yep, B the gardener says that he has a bolt and a nut and a washer in there right now. And Caesar Con H says, "What's up, man?" Yes, guess what? I have a bolt, a washer, and a nut replacing that thing, and it's been in there for about 10 years now. I bought my truck, my first hard body I bought in 2008, the green truck that I have now. I had it for a couple weeks, and then I noticed that somebody came up to me and said, "Your brake lights are still on." I'm like, okay, and I couldn't figure out why, so I ended up pulling the fuse and bringing it back to the guy that I bought it from, because I didn't know what he had done. You buy a used truck, you don't know what's been boogered and what's been glued. So I kind of, I didn't really trust the situation. So I brought it back to him, and he climbed underneath it, and he's like, "Yeah, that little plug popped out." And so we put a bolt, a nut, and a washer in it, tightened it down, and I've never had a problem with it since. So yeah, there's some technical for you. Hello, everybody. I started probably about 5 minutes early, but welcome back. This is question and answer session number 2. And as I said, I prepared a tiny, very, very tiny list. And let's see, Caesar says, "My new 92 hard body has cruise control. Was that a common thing?" I've seen it on them. It depends on where the switches are. Some of them are aftermarket, some of them are factory. Is it a SEV6? Because if it's a more packaged truck, it's gonna more likely have creature comforts like that. But if a big, base model like my Patches hard body, no way. You would have to have an aftermarket unit with a aftermarket switch and everything. So the Pathfinders were way more common to have them. The white Pathfinder that went on to become Double Dare, that has cruise control. So if you look inside the cab of Double Dare, I kept the original stalks, the turn stalk and everything, and the switches are still there, but I took out all the vacuum pump and all the throttle cable and everything for that, disconnected that, and no more cruise control for that thing. So I don't really use cruise, because I find that every time I turn cruise control on, I immediately have to turn it back off because there's some jackass in front of me slowing down, and I don't have adaptive cruise, so I just turn it back off. So. All right, cool. We're up to 4 viewers. So throw some questions at me. Base model, Caesar says, "It's a base model KA. It doesn't look factory, but it looks legit." It's entirely possible that it did come spec'd with cruise control. Nissan in 1992. Nissan between 87 and 92 was interesting. That's why that's my favorite era, is the square dash era, because you don't really know what packages Nissan was going to throw at you. Some of them had power windows and were 2-wheel drive regular cabs. Some of them didn't have it. Some of them had cruise. Some of them had, just AM/FM radio. Some of them had cassette decks. It's neat to see all the combinations. By 94, everything was kind of like, you either had this or you had the SE package, and it was kind of like those were the 2 things that you had, and it was a common thread. So there was like the base model, which would be your models with no tachometer, a lot of times no power steering, a lot of times no radio, and they would have the door panels that didn't go all the way up to the glass. The inner door panels wouldn't go all the way up to the glass, so you'd see the top strip of the door with the body color, which I really like those panels because I like seeing the door color. I mean, you get inside your vehicle and you forget what color vehicle you're driving, because you obviously you don't get to enjoy it from the inside. So I came across a base model. Um, I want to say it was a base model 94 or 95. It definitely wasn't an airbag model. Sorry, it's like 90 degrees here, and it's muggy, and the air is not moving at all. So that's why we're inside tonight, because if I was out in the garage, I would just be, I'd look like a shower right now. And so I've got fans on me, and I got to drink this water like crazy, but we'll get through it. It's no big deal here. Yeah, so going back to the door panels, I ran into a base model, I want to say 94, 95. Caesar says, would it be worth it to build a crew cab HB? What would be the hardest part if you were to build one? Just import one. Import one from Mexico. There's a few floating around here, including that little red fire truck that keeps popping up on Marketplace and Craigslist, and it seems like people buy it and they go on all the Nissan sites saying, look what I bought. I bought a Japanese, right-hand drive Navara, fire truck, and everybody's like, cool, and then like 2 weeks later the truck's like for sale. You're like, I'm selling it, and you're like, you just bought it. So that truck's passed through a lot of people's hands lately. At least it seems like it has. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just, I've seen it for sale. I've seen it up on auction sites. I've seen it in various places. But there's a couple really cool slammed crew cabs that are being built. And, you could stretch the cab if you wanted to, but you might as well just go to Mexico and buy a cab, or just have the whole shebang imported. I don't think they made a lowered two-wheel drive, like a regular two-wheel drive version. I think they were all four-wheel drives, but we all know the cab mounts are pretty much the same, so you just got to lift the body off, lift the cab or the bed off, and do your arithmetic to find out exactly how much you got to stretch the two-wheel drive frame. Or you could do what we did with the Rallycross truck and just, Z the frame and flip the control arms over and do ball joint spacers, and you got yourself a lowered four-wheel drive crew cab. It'd be even cooler if you did it as a dually, or got some real nice wides in the back and did the Hanneman fenders in the rear. I think that'd be totally cool. I've seen some renderings like that, and I think that'd be a totally awesome look. Yeah, the crew cabs are cool. I like them a lot, but yeah, it all depends on how much money you want to spend on building something like that. I could see that build especially with the way steel and materials are now, I could see that being a pretty high price item, but you'd have a very unique piece of equipment there. So yeah, the door panels. Keep getting off track, but that's okay. You guys keep throwing me questions, and in between questions, I will just blab. I will just give you stories of the stuff. So this 94, 95 that I found in the junkyard was a base model, rubber floor, the 3/4 or 7/8 door panels with where you can see the top strip with the color and everything, and no tachometer, and it didn't even have a radio. It had a delete plate where the radio was, and it had the delete plate for the antenna. So I grabbed the floor, the rubber floor. I grabbed the inner door panels, I grabbed the delete plate and the antenna delete plate off of that truck, and I put them all in the LaRouge red truck, and I liked it. I liked having the red, pop out through the door panel where I'm driving down the road and I got color, not just gray. And the door panels aren't perfect. Otherwise, I would pop Green's door panels out and put those in green. But one of these days I'll find somebody who's good, because there's a small crack in the vinyl, and Green's door panels are like mint, so I don't want to like trade the mint full door panels for not so mint 3/4 panels. But if I can get the 3/4 panels refabricated, I'll definitely swap it over, because I think it'd be awesome to just be driving down the road and having the green tops to the doors showing there. I think it'd be great. All right, so let's get a question. Anybody got some questions? Tom says, what up, man? What's up, Tom? Thank you for joining us. Where are you guys all coming from? Let's hear. We got more people in this room than we definitely had already last week. I think I had like 5 people in the room. Colorado, Cool, very, very cool. I'd like to end up somewhere out in the west, west of here, at some point. I figured, like, if I finish building Double Dare someday, where is there to go and really, like, take it off road and overland here in New York? New York's is very not vehicle friendly. I mean, if you got a Prius, New York will bow down and throw money at you. But anything other than a Prius, they are kind of like, no, we don't like that. So, and I told the story, the header story, in the last video with Double Dare, where I actually had to have the headers I bought from, I want to say Summit Racing. So I bought the headers from Summit Racing, but I had to send them down to Tennessee, and my buddy down there, Rob, turned them around and sent them to me personally. So you can personally send headers through the mail from, personal to personal. But if I go to order anything that's not carb compliant by New York and California standards, companies won't ship them to me. So I have to go and send it somewhere else and then trust that someone's going to turn around and send it back to me. Luckily, my buddy Robbie, he's a stand-up guy. He's a big, he's got a nice SEV6 King Cab, and he's got a real nice two-door Pathfinder that he's been dinking around on. So him and I go back and forth on Facebook. So just started to get chain slap on my 95KA. What are your thoughts on brands of chains and tensioners? The first chain and tensioner that I did on the green truck, I used OEM parts, and it got very expensive, and I've got chain rattle again. I did the chain in 2008, and I've had chain rattle for probably about 2 years, but I only put a couple hundred miles a year on that truck. But the OEM stuff isn't really like, it's got to be replaced. The Patches truck that I just got done doing the cylinder head and the timing chain on, I went with aftermarket Melling parts. I got everything through Rock Auto, and it was pretty reasonable for the whole kit. I did end up reusing the cam sprocket and the crank sprocket because they didn't look terrible. The thing that'll get you with the Melling chain kit is the chain links. That particular chain works on Mazda engines, Toyota engines, and what it is that they actually give you a little chart that you got to lay the chain out on and count the links and then mark the links. So if you have a Nissan, you mark link number whatever and link number whatever, and those are your chain marks. Same like if you had a Mazda, you move the chain a little bit, line it up with the chart, and then make your marks there. So it fits multiple applications. But I haven't had Patches registered and on the road yet. I'm still, after I had the brake problem with it, I haven't taken it down the road. But every time I've started it, no chain noise. It actually runs beautifully. I'm really pleased with it. I was really worried and scared that the cylinder head job was going to go south in a hurry, and it did. So far, it's been great. And I popped the radiator cap off, and there's no oil in the radiator, so I think I won. But I used the Melling kit. So Caesar says, what tool can I use to compress my intake valve springs to replace the valve seals on the intake side? I would look at, I know OTC makes those. They have the ones that go in and actually hook onto the spring, and then you turn them down and it pushes the actual washer down so you can get the keepers out. That there's other tools that'll actually bolt in, and it's kind of like a pivot, like you pull a handle and it pushes the valve down and you take the keepers out that way. But the one that I have looks like a ice cream cone with a knob on the top of it. So you just open it up so it clamps onto the valve spring, and then you just turn the knob and it compresses the spring and allows you to get to the keepers out. And then I would get a fitting that goes into your spark plug hole that you can put shop air on and put air into the cylinder. That way the valve doesn't like fall into the cylinder while it doesn't have the keepers on. So keep the air pressure in the cylinder, keep the valve up, and then you can do whatever you got to do for that. I've seen people use rope. They've put rope in the cylinders to keep everything from falling in or whatever. I haven't done the rope trick yet, so I can't really give you a good review of it. But when I had the cylinder head off of patches and I sent it to the machine shop, they did the valve seals. They did the whole valve job on it and everything, cleaned it all up. Came back, beautiful. Looked brand spanking new. Caesar says the tool with the knob only worked on the exhaust spring and the intake's smaller, and that tool doesn't work. Yeah, you're probably going to end up having to use the pivot tool that's going to bolt down. Probably, I'm not even sure. You might even end up having to use a machine shop or something at that point. Yeah, I'm trying to think right now. I think that you're going to end up having to use the one where it's a handle and you pull it down to compress the spring on the intake side. That valve tool works great on everything else. So, sorry, I wish I could give you a better answer on that one. The last one I did, the machine shop took care of it because I had the whole head off. So, all right. So, almost had like 3/4 of the way stumped on that one. That's pretty good. I like that. And we could even consult the friendly manual here and see what they say. There's probably a really expensive OTC tool that they recommend for doing the valve seals. Let me valve oil seal. There you go. And we're talking a KA motor, correct? Yes, we are, aren't we? Base model. There you go. I flipped right to it. And I will show it right to the camera. Wish it would focus a little better than that. But that's it. And they're giving you the OTC part number of J36467. So hopefully that gets you back in the ball game. These things are worth their weight in gold, man. I'll tell you, these things have gotten stupid in price too. Even the ones falling apart. I mean, look at this one's greasy, falling apart. I mean, that's why this one's out, because I don't feel like, I don't feel like it's even the bindings even taped. I don't feel bad about using this one in the shop because it's already been used. This is a well-used piece of literature right here. But I've got ones that are like, almost never been opened. And I've collected them all. I would say most of them from 74 through 99. I think I have 99. Yeah, actually I do have 99. I've been using, I don't know where it is at the moment, but I've been using that for reference for Double Dare. Even though it doesn't have supercharger information, pretty much other than some minor specs, the general principle of the VG series engine has not changed much since it first came out in '86. So other than a few minor specs, like they changed the intake runners in the head, they changed the way it's ported. Obviously the engine got punched out from 3.0 to 3.3. It got multi-point fuel injection instead of throttle body, but the main core of the engine is the same. But I wanted to make sure that the electronic end of it was good, so I ended up combining 1990 with 1999 with 2003 to build the Mongrel VG30 controlled VG33ER engine, and so far everything is looking pretty good. I've got just a couple things left I gotta touch up on, and then just got to get the battery cables hooked up, and once that's done, she'll crank. So I'm excited. I want to have it running because I want it here in my house before the snow starts falling. So I want to get it on the flatbed or the trailer and bring it here and put it in my barn so I can finish fleshing it out. So these things, if you can get them inexpensive, which is becoming very difficult, I suggest the factory service manual. The Chilton's books and the Haynes books are okay. The problem is that they blend multiple years together, so you'll have, the book covers the entire series from 86 to 97. You have to know what you're dealing with and weed it out from all the other information that may not pertain. eBay is where I've been getting most of mine, although I haven't bought any in probably a good few years because they started getting up into the $50 to $150 area for the books. When I was buying them, it was probably like 10 years ago, and nobody was really collecting these things. They really had no value. So I mean, I was buying, you know, tons of them for like $5 a piece. I mean, I think I bought, and I got take. Told you guys, we're gonna have barking dogs. We're gonna have barking dogs at some point. How's it 93 VGS? I'm gonna have to wait for that to come back up. I didn't read the whole thing. I think I got this one here, which was funny. I felt bad for this one, just because nobody wants it. But this was like $2 with like $1.50 shipped like 10 years ago. So yeah, and I have lots of orphan, you know, like wayward manuals like that floating around in here, plus a whole database of all the technical bulletins that they did. Pardon me one second. You go lay down. Go lay down now. We have Benny the Bull here. I'd move the camera, but I don't want to disturb the power cord. But Benny the Bull is my puppy, who I've had for about almost exactly a year now. And when I got him, he was a Tasmanian Devil. Didn't even know his name, didn't know any commands, was intact, and was a raging balls. And him and I have worked very long and hard on becoming a more civilized citizen in this country. And he's not perfect. But he has really made improvements over the years, and he's a good boy. Come here. Come here. Come here. We're going to get on camera and show everybody what you look like. Here he is. Well, kind of. He's a maniac. All right, come on. Come on. All right, well, he's shy, camera shy. Okay, so what other questions do we have going on here? I'll try and answer whatever you guys throw at me. I'll give it my best. And if there's no questions, then I'll just continue blabbing. Let's see. Okay. So while we wait for a question to pop up here, here's the remaining list of what needs to be done. This is David Freiberger style right here. This is what's left to be done on the Patches hardbody truck, and basically I have to bolt the fenders down, get the windshield washers going. I just have to makeshift exhaust and bleed the brakes. The brakes are done, they just need to be bled, and I have not had a chance to sit out there and gravity bleed the stuff. And in Double Dare, you're on TV. You're famous. Sorry. Double Dare. Here's what's left to do on Double Dare. As you can see, I have only crossed off one thing, and that's because I've been just, it's tough when it's at somebody else's house, and you know, you're just kind of like more focused on getting your stuff in your own house done. Things like this just gotta get pushed by the side. But this is what's left that we have to do on Double Dare. We've got the throttle position sensor that I have to still splice in, which is no big deal. I just gotta do it. Mass airflow sensor I gotta do, but I can't do that until. Oh, okay. Would you recommend swapping the V3s or just leaving the exterior cams alone? I would recommend putting the cams in it. Those Xterra cams are like nothing. I've looked at the specs, and they're just like tame. If I could do the VG33 ER all over again and have like more funding, I would have taken the time to do the cam swap on it. I have a 300ZX motor out of a 84, and I looked at the cam profiles in the spec sheets on the service manuals, and the Z31 cams are way hotter. It's just going to open that engine up way more. Nissan does weird stuff. it's kind of like frustrating because it's like, to me, they come out and they're like, look, we're gonna build this awesome, thingamabobber, and then they do something to chop its kneecaps off, and it's like, now it's not cool. It looks cool, but it's not cool because it just it doesn't back itself up. It doesn't have what backs it up. So like the 3.3 obviously was a bigger motor, and you gained like 30 horsepower, but I mean, at the expense of having a very lethargic. Are the Z31 cams same as the Pathfinder cams? That's a good question. I don't have my book on me. I think the Z31 cams are hotter than the Pathfinder cams. I think they have more lift. So if you can use Z31 cams, I would do that, because the truck cams, they're more geared for the low end grunt. It depends on which way you want to go too, but the truck cams are definitely more grunty. The Z31 cams are going to give you more upper end, more horsepower in that regard. And the reason I didn't do them in Double Dare was because, one, time, I didn't want to spend the time, even though I have the cams. Two, I kind of chickened out and decided to try it out with just the stock configuration with the lower end, figuring that I'd make up a little bit of the difference by doing an open exhaust system with headers, and see if that makes a difference or whatever. So hopefully it does. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, if you got access to Z31 cams, or you pony up and you buy some Schneider cams, there's a member on infamousnissan.com. His name's Joe. He's got a red long bed 2-wheel drive, and he carries a tractor around. He tows a tractor around with it. He did the VG33 swap on his truck, just transferring over all the original 3.0 ignition system and emission systems and everything like that. But he did go with the Schneider, I believe it's the Schneider H256 cams, and he says it's got some more pep to it than way more than when it was a 3.0. And I would go on Infamous Nissan and look for him. I forget his username now, but I do know his name's Joe, and if you see it, it's right in his signature, the picture of the red truck with the Kubota tractor on it. So he uses it for work. And if I had the money to pony up, I would do the H256s as well. I figure if there's something catastrophic happens to that engine, like I fire it up and it needs head gaskets, then I will just port polish the heads, put the 256 cams in it, and slap it back together and run it that way. But I'm just like in get it started mode. That's, if I can get it to start and idle, and then figure out what what the next stage is going to be, who knows. I got the cams. They're sitting over at Justin's house, so who knows. Anyways, yeah. Any chance you can use something, I would do it. I mean, just Nissan, as I said before, they'll build something cool and then they'll build it back. It's like they scale it back, and it just becomes nothing. I mean, the IDX project was a prime example how Nissan was I can't even describe it. I was a moderator for NicoClub.com for a short while back, probably about like 7 years ago. I did the truck section for a while, and we were talking with Nissan's design team at that moment in time, and trying to find out. They were getting into producing the IDX, and I forget what the name of the other one was. They both looked like 510s, but one looked like the BRE Datsun, and the other one looked like just your run-of-the-mill 510. And we were really excited. We were like, man, well, you're not bringing back the 240SX, but you're giving us that. And not everybody was happy with it, but I thought it was pretty cool, because I was like, you know what? I would drive that. You put a 2.0 liter in there, even a 2.0 turbo with a 6-speed manual transmission, and make it rear-wheel drive and give it that look. Yeah, I'd have one in my garage for sure, absolutely. And then Nissan came back, and we were talking to the design team, and they said that the statistics say that the kids want the Juke. The kids want the Juke. They think the Juke is the cool car, and I'm like, the Juke? Who are you listening to? I mean, what audience are you asking? Because as far as I know, everybody that I've talked to and every thread that I've read about what Nissan needs to do to get back in the game have all said, bring back the 240SX. We're talking the S16. We're talking the Sylvia. We're talking this. And Nissan, it fell on deaf ears. They came out, they listened to people enough to do those two concept cars, the IDX and all that, but it still wasn't a 240SX. And then they came out with the Juke, and they green lighted. Now dig this. This is where I knew that I had just totally I had jumped into upside down world. This is where that was. They said no go on the 240SX. No S16, no 240SX, no Sylvia. They green lighted the Murano Cabriolet, and my jaw just hit the floor. And I'm like, you guys sold not even 500 of those in the last series, and you're greenlighting the next generation of that car, and you're telling everybody else you can have the Juke and no 240SX? Okay, all right, well, I guess this is where I step off this platform as far as I'm concerned, and this is a personal opinion. Nissan, for me, ended in 2002. The 2002 Altima was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. I was working for Nissan at the time when that came out, and I really liked the first and second generation Altimas. I had a U13 Altima that I had dressed up as a Bluebird, an Australian, not a Japanese, but an Australian Bluebird. I imported the power folding mirrors. I had a VIS carbon fiber hood, the side skirts. I had the 17-inch SER central wheels on it. Lowered it on sprint springs, and put a nice stereo in it. Tinted the windows, and promptly had my stereo system stolen on multiple occasions. That's what you get when you tint your windows and you live in the city. And I like the next generation, which I think was the L31. I think it was a little bit more squared off than the Jelly Bean, but it was basically a Jelly Bean with new proportions. I like those cars, but then they came out with the O2, when Carlos Ghosn took over, and he started Frenching up all the cars. All the Nissans got these big French asses, and I was like, ooh, what is going on here? And it just kept we went from horizontal headlights like what you found on the 2002 2003 Maxima to vertical headlights that made me think of the Wagon Queen family truckster from Vacation. And I was like, what the, oh man, and the interiors were awesome. Well, except for the 2002 2003 Ultimates. Those were terrible. That was the most bland car I'd ever seen, and they were garbage. The floorboards rotted out of them, and I never had that problem on my Altima, and I had my Altima for 8 years in New York weather, and I never had floorboard problems. I had fenders that started rusting, but I never had floorboards. But these 02, 03 Altimas, just garbage, and you barely see them on the road anymore. I see maybe a couple, and I understand it's a 20-year-old car, but I mean, they really just disappeared quick. And then they just started. I mean, Infiniti always looked good. I always thought the Infinitis looked really, really nice, and I don't understand why Nissan didn't borrow more from Infiniti and do it more on a price point kind of level. So Nissan was busy telling us at NicoClub.com that coming up with a rear-wheel drive system was expensive. It was expensive to R&D it, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Once again, I have jumped into upside down world here. You guys did nothing but rear wheel drive cars. It was all through the 70s. The first front wheel drive cars you did was the F10. And that was, and I think it's a cool looking car, but it's kind of ugly. But you're telling me that out of all the history of Nissan, you'd have to sit down and reinvent the wheel? Carlos says, do you know anything about the 5-lug swap? I have the rear end figured out, by the way. I've not done one. You're going to have to probably consult a mini truck site where somebody has done that. I principally, like on paper, you need to just basically have the hubs from a Toyota, and you just have to make sure that the bearing that the hub rides on has the correct inner and outer diameter, so the bearing can sit properly on the spindle and sit properly inside the back of the hub. And you need to do that on both the inner and outer and make sure that the depths are correct. But I don't have any part numbers. I don't have any information on that. I haven't really gotten around to doing any of that kind of swapping, but I have seen the information out there. So maybe somebody's put together a how-to and says you need the following bearings, because that's really the hub and the two bearings are pretty much all you really need. And I think you'd also have to obviously you have to change the rotor, but that should be a Toyota rotor, I would imagine, and Toyota caliper with some kind of adapter bracket to get the bolt holes to match up with the spindle on the hard body. But I could be wrong. There may be more to it, and then I could be wrong. There could be less to it, you know. But yeah, I would look at that. The bearings are probably the most important part for getting that to slide on there and stay on there, and just make sure that it sets the right depth so it's not, so the bearing's not coming loose and dancing around on the spindle there. But there's so many good 6-lug wheels out there. But again, yeah, I'm old school, so American racing looks good to me. Some of the newer Nissan 6-lugs, up till they changed the bolt pattern, look good as well. Yeah, so my disappointment in Nissan has been almost 20 years now. Although they are trying, like, I don't know if anyone, well, you probably have all noticed, but the hard bodies are in the Nissan commercials, which is awesome. And every time a magazine writes an article about the new 2022 Frontier, they do a throwback to the hard body. They mention the hard body by name. They mention what it's all about. And every time they bring the Frontier out, they bring one of the trucks out from the Nissan Heritage Museum, which, by the way, that's where my green truck is going to end up. I am going, before I die, I'm not sending it down next week or anything like that. But what's going to happen is that I'm going to be like 3 heartbeats away from dying from whatever. Hopefully it's from old age, we'll find out. But I'm going to hop in the truck and drive it all the way down to Tennessee and park the truck in the museum, hand them the keys, have a nice day, and then just probably just pass away right there in the lobby, and they can have the green truck for the rest of eternity. Whether they show it or not, I don't care. They'll have it, and it'll be safe, and it'll probably be like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where they put it in a box and then they put it in a warehouse for the rest of eternity. That's the plan with the green truck. And the only other plan would be to take myself and the truck to the junkyard and be crushed together. I don't know. So something along those lines. I just don't want it to fall in the wrong hands, I've been working on that truck for 13 years. But to go back to my original point, Nissan is trying. The 400Z, I think it looks good. I think that it looks way better than, I didn't like the 370Z. The 350Z I kind of like. Caesar says, your great truck has a Pathfinder front end though. People won't know by then. Yeah, I always run the risk of people not knowing. The green truck has a Pathfinder front end. No, people won't know. Yeah, the Nissan people might. I mean, they did technically come with that front end from like 88 to 89, and I don't know why they stopped. I think it was just to keep prices down. Because 86 and 87, they had the regular square 6054 headlights. Most of them did. I mean, the 2-wheel drives all did. The 4-wheel drives got the Pathfinder front end. And then for some reason in 88 and 89, the 2-wheel drive trucks started coming with the Pathfinder front ends on them. And then by 1990, they went back to the regular 6054 bulbs, and you never saw a Pathfinder front end on a stock hard body from 1990 on. You want to know what's really cool? Here's something really cool that you guys will like. So they did the redesign of the grill in 1993, and you know how it has the V. So you had the V there, and then it had the Nissan logo on the hood, but all the grills had the V. That was the first truck that Nissan, or any vehicle that Nissan had that had that V grill, and that V grill has been Nissan's staple ever since. So the first vehicle to have that V was the hard body in 1994, I think it was 1994, because when they went to the round dash, they changed and had the V grill there. Nissan has adopted that V grill as their corporate grill ever since. They've spaced it out and had it in different positions and everything. But every Nissan since, with the exception of the Bucktooth Maxima and the Bucktooth Sentra, but even those were V with the hamburger in it. The V grill originated on the Nissan hardbody. So be proud. Nissan has carried the hardbody tradition since 1994 all the way into their current vehicles. So if you see the V grill, like that, that's a hard body thing, and I think I'm proud. But every article that's come out, Motor Trend, Jalopnik, all these, anybody that's written about the 22 Frontier has made mention of the hard body. And Caesar says, I scored a 4x4 hard body grill a while back. I wish I could tell everyone the grill. You're talking what year 4x4 grill? The original 87 4x4 grill with the two blocks? The one that I want to put on Double Dare, but I can't seem to find one that isn't broken? Or are you talking about actually like the Pathfinder style honeycomb grill like I have on Patches? Which the honeycomb grill is one of my favorite grills. That's the 87, 88. Well, yeah, they had that on the Pathfinder from 87 until roughly about 90, and then they went to the all-plastic grill. Which, by the way, somebody did ask me what one of the rarest things Nissan that I saw in a junkyard ever, and it's funny that and I didn't even think about to answer the question at that time, but I do have the seats out of a 1990 two-door Pathfinder. It was a crossover year. They're very rare. It was a 1990 two-door Pathfinder, so it looked like it was a two-door with multi-point fuel injection. That's what gave it away, because I saw it at the junkyard, and I actually have the speedometer cluster out of it. I grabbed a few other things out of it because it was an SEV6. And so I grabbed the seats, and for some reason this junkyard had something against Pathfinders. They used to have a whole bunch of them, and then they would always be gone quick. So I would see them, and I would have to run back the next day and grab everything I wanted out of them, and then the next week I would go and they would have crushed it. But somewhere, and I moved into this house 2.5 years ago, and I still have boxes upstairs that I haven't unpacked, and I have a whole computer that I haven't unpacked that has thousands and thousands of hard body and Pathfinder pictures that I collected over the years. Some of them I took myself when I was at yards, back when they were at yards. I mean, I would go to picking poles, and I would find Pathfinders, and I'd be I gotta grab everything. And then I was on Google and used car and eBay, and I was just saving pictures of all the different variants. If I liked it, I saved it. If it was weird, I saved it. Okay, guys. Hey. Told you guys. Barking dogs. Benny the bull, get over here. Come here. You go lay down. Stop egging him on. I feel like a parent. I am a parent. And I did just recently fill out an application to become a dog foster. There's a foster out in Buffalo that I sent my paperwork into, and I've jumped through a couple of their hoops now, and I think I'm on the final stage of getting approved. And I will be doing a one-dog foster with these two. Both these dogs are rescues themselves. Benny I rescued last year. As I said, he was with a lady that loved him, but she couldn't handle him because she had, you know, some medical things that needed to go on. And his original owner didn't want him back. He was gonna open the door and just let him run as a stray throughout the city. So when I got him, he was 9 months old, maybe 10 months old, and didn't know his name, didn't know any commands, didn't know nothing. Just knew that he wanted to hump everything, he wanted to dominate everything, and just get in everybody's business, and just there's no personal space. And I got him all of his shots, got him fixed, got everything like that. Just put on a couple pounds, and now he knows his name and he knows commands. So he's getting better all the time. Jet, I got because my ex at the time wanted a dog the day after my Merit dog passed away, and I was like not ready to have a dog. But she was ready to have a dog the next day, so we went out and got Jet, and then we split. I bought this house. I took Jet with me, and he's been the best thing I've ever had in my entire life. He's awesome. That's a cuddle bug. That's a good boy right there. And yeah, so he's about 6.5, maybe 7 now. And I've had him for, we'll be going on 4 years in December. But we're done with dogs. No more dogs. So yeah, I will find pictures of that two-door 1990 multi-fuel injected Pathfinder, and I'll put it up on Instagram. Someday I have to load the computer or wherever I put it. I don't know where I put it. I still have the seats. The seats ended up in the Rallycross truck, and then sadly, I scrapped the Rallycross truck last month. I got sick of looking at it. It was a fun truck. If you go back and look at my very first video, I think it was the first video I ever posted back in 2013. It was before I even started talking on camera and getting comfortable with talking to anybody on camera. It's 2 videos, and one of them is the Rallycross truck half finished doing donuts in the parking lot and then going across the street. And then the other one was it half finished doing a half-ass drag race with an RX-7, road race car. We went on to race that truck in the 2013 season, and there's videos of it. I have a lot of videos of it up on, if you follow, 2013, 2014, there's a lot of videos of it going around the track. But the original owner, I helped build it. I didn't own it at the time, but I helped build it. Rolled it in a corner, did a barrel roll. It landed on its wheels. He was injured, and the cab was crushed. The front corner was crushed. The 2 Hanneman front fenders were destroyed, but the rear bedsides were still intact, and I still have those upstairs in the barn. But the cab was no longer square. Because of the roll cage, there was no place for me to get a porta power on it to be able to try and square it. And the frame was bent in the one corner where it barreled. So I was like, you know what? I saved it for a rainy day. And originally, I was going to take all the pieces off of the white Pathfinder that became Double Dare. I was going to take all the pieces off of that and use it to build the Rallycross truck. I was going to fix the frame, and I was going to make the Rallycross truck a supercharged V6 and have it be in its original glory with Hanneman fenders on it, with Hanneman bedsides, roll cage, do that, but it would be a supercharged, regular cab, Rallycross truck, lowered, Z frame, the whole nine. But I decided against that, and decided to swap the cab onto the Pathfinder frame because I was way more intrigued with the Pathfinder rear suspension. And I was going to try and build the Rallycross truck into that. So it was going to be the black with the Hanneman bedsides, and it was going to be a Pathfinder with Hanneman bedsides. And it may still do that. I may still do that eventually. For now, it's a flatbed, but I have the Hanneman bedsides upstairs. I just have to make the framework and mount them. But I did not get the blessing from the original owner to do that. So I kind of did my own thing. And we disagreed on what I was going to do with it, so I ended up plucking the white cab off of the Rallycross truck, because I already had, if you look at the videos of the Rallycross truck series, I had that truck back together. It was back together. All I needed to do basically was plumb the wiring back into it, and it would have been running just fine. I was actually even planning on turbocharging the KA engine. I had that in the works, but I just ended up, unplugging everything. Friends lifted the cab up, and we put it on a cart. You can see that in the Pathfinder pickup series where we, have the cab on the cart. The Pathfinder frame, I was just so intrigued with it because it's coil spring rear suspension. It's a 5-link suspension. It's got a pan-hard bar. It's got a sway bar, and the fuel tank is in the center between the frame rails instead of on the right-hand side. It already had an H233B, and all the mounts for the cab are exactly the same from the back wall forward. So it just made me think, I got to do something totally different. I can rebuild somebody else's project, and it would still be their project just with my hands rebuilding it from all the damage. Or I could put my own stamp on it and build something that I want to build. Instead of being like, up until that point, I was a junkyard shopper. So that's how the red truck came to be, was me constantly going to the junkyard and looking for oddball shit and mixing trucks together. The HB at the Nissan Museum is an SC model, and they're covering the factory pop-up tie-down to the stupid bedliner. I bet nobody Nissan knows. Yeah, there are some Nissan fans in the Nissan network. That's, to touch on that real quick, and then I'll jump back into the Double Dare thing there. The Nissan Design America team, which was Nissan Design International at the time, I was working with an ex-Nissan, a former Nissan designer, product manager, to write the hardbody history thread that's on infamousnissan.com. So if you go to infamousnissan.com and you scroll down to the hardbody section, which is specifically hardbody, you'll see a long list of pinned threads, and one of them is called Hardbody History. Click on that. That is the result of research done by myself and the designer, which he's requested to remain anonymous, just because he says that the culture at Nissan has been that the designers don't want to be known personally. They tend to just do it for the company. Although we do know that Jerry Hirschberg, Alan Flowers, and Tom Semple were 3 instrumental people that were involved in the design of the hardbody itself, which is funny because if you read the hardbody history, I bet you, Caesar, I bet you they would allow that truck in there. I don't think they're going to put it on display. That's what I said. I'm just going to have them shove it in the warehouse. They can put it in a crate and just hold on to it for the rest of eternity. I just want to know that it's in the Nissan warehouse, and I can overlook at it from space or wherever the hell my soul ends up. Be like, yes, that was my truck. It's in a museum. But yeah, the 3 members, Jerry Hirschberg, Alan Flowers, and Tom Semple, if you read the hardbody history thread, you'll find out that those are the guys that designed the boat-tail Riviera, the 1970s boat-tail Riviera, which is a cool car. It's not really my style. That was definitely a Jerry Hirschberg design, but Nissan, when they were getting really serious about doing all their manufacturing. What are you doing, dog? Can you go lay down? Benny, can you go lay down, please? He's just being a Benny, I guess. When Nissan was getting started and moving their operations to America in the late 70s, because up until then everything had been imported from Japan, but they were trying to get their foothold into there. They picked off a whole bunch of GM design team members and put them to work in Nissan Design International. And so their first design, this is what's really cool about the hardbody, and you'll see it in the 5 things that you didn't know about the hardbody, that video that I have up, is that the first vehicle to be designed in the United States as a Nissan design vehicle with their new facilities was the hardbody. They wanted to have the replacement for the 720. They wanted to make it a radical design, which, you know, radical by today's standards is different than what radical back then was, but it was a radical design. So if you think about it, the Nissan hardbody is actually a design that goes back to like 1981, 1982. So it's even older than when it came out in 86 and a half. So it started out. And there are pictures of the prototypes. I do have some pictures of the prototypes and everything. The guy that I worked with to write the hardbody, let's try that again. The guy I worked with that helped me write the hardbody history article went on to work for Kia as a product manager for Kia. But he still has an all original 87 SEV6 pickup that he loves to death. And if you look him up on infamousnissan.com, his username is Pilkua, which is Pilkua. But that's all I'm going to tell you. I know his name, I know who he is, and I promised him that I wouldn't tell anybody who his real name is, just because that's the privacy that he asked me to do. So, but if you can talk to him directly through Infamous Nissan, and he's a big hardbody guy. But yeah, that was the first vehicle that ever got designed in the new Nissan Design International studio, built in the United States in the early 80s by former GM designers that designed the Riviera boat tail, amongst other vehicles. So there is some GM DNA injected in there. And then also of note is that if you look at the first generation US Pulsar, that I think it was the N13, I think it was. It might be the N12. I forget the exact name of it. Let's see, do I have a Pulsar book? I do not. I do not have a Pulsar book. Nope, I do not. I thought I had a first generation Pulsar service manual. Maybe that's what I should spend some Christmas money on this year. But if you look at the Pulsar, the first one that made it in the United States, the Pulsar name goes back a long time outside the United States, but inside the United States, the Pulsar that came out in like 83, 84 has small mail slots on the hood, just like the hardbody did. And according to my source, you know, that my anonymous source through Nissan, he says that that was all the rage, that they loved the mail slot idea and they were throwing it on everything. So that's how they say, hey, will you stop? You need to go lay down, buddy. It's nap time. It's nap time for Benny dogs. We'll be wrapping this up in a couple minutes anyways, because we've been going for about an hour, unless I get some more questions and whatnot. But yeah, the mail slot thing was a big rage all at that time period. So it's kind of cool to see all the connections between them and everything. This tying back to what Nissan started doing in 2002, 2003. I wasn't too, I don't know, just, I don't know. I think the D22 Frontier was the last real old school Nissan truck to come off the assembly line in the original configuration that the Nissan trucks has always been. Torsion bars and leaf springs in the rear. Nothing against the D40 or the R50 or anything else, but the D22 and the WD22 Xterra, those were pretty much for me the last of the old school, the original design Nissan truck, and so it's unfortunate. All right, guys, any other questions for me tonight that I can try and answer for you? I've kind of meandered on a whole bunch of different topics here, but I really appreciate everybody coming out and spending some time with me. I'm going to do this every week. I think does this time slot work for everybody? I think it works because I'm not too tired, but I'm, you know, not in the middle of a daytime project either. So I think every Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I am going to do a little sit-down powwow and just answer questions and tell stories and share as much information as I can keep you guys interested. So if there's no other questions, I guess I will be signing off. I really appreciate everybody coming out, and I guess we'll see you next week. And if you think of any questions between now and then, you can hit me up on Instagram, which is rainmaker_D21. My email is Nissan Rallycross Truck. You're welcome, Flat Fender. Nissan Rallycross Truck at gmail.com. I don't really have a Facebook presence, but since you're here, you don't need to know what the YouTube channel name is. You already know it, but it is Pounding Rocks Truck Shop. And this Saturday, I will be over at Justin's shop doing some cleanup work and some tinkering on Double Dare, and I will bring you guys some updates from that. The clutch is working. It does have a functioning clutch now, so just getting closer. So, well, I wish everybody a good night, and thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Save the date and time. See ya!